Hope everyone's doing well. Go ahead and get started with a little warm up. Today's session, I want to look into marking as an option or a way of becoming mindful through our drawing. This idea of marking or making a mark and what that mark might mean with the flow of our hands and our bodies. So I'm just going to take some scratch paper, page in the sketchbook, and begin playing with marks. I start a lot of doodles this way and make a few different shapes or pulls, flows, pushes of the pencil. Maybe the first few, we just push a few onto the page really quick. See what they might be. Is it fast or slow, short or long, sharp or soft? And after I make a few, I start to settle in on one or two that I find interesting. This loop one feels nice for my hand. Then begin to repeat it a few times. Try it a few different sizes. Maybe different directions. I got a little 6. Get a little more loopy. And I feel when I draw it this way, it's a nice flow. As you start to find a mark, it could be just a little tick, a little slash, a little dash. Even doesn't have to be a shape. It could be a circle. Now we can begin to bring some awareness to what that mark leaves on the page and how we engage with it. So I can start to bring my breath to the mark. Is it a quick mark? We breathe out with it. Kind of an exhale. Can I do it slow? Then bring the attention to where you press your fingers on the tool. Here my thumb is guiding the creation of the mark. Very subtle pressure on the end of my thumb pushes it up or down. If I want to come towards me, the thumb stabilizes and shifts to my index finger. Scan through all of the fingers. My middle finger, the way I'm holding the pencil, is a stable, strong support. It has a large pressure connection with the pen. It doesn't move, doesn't change too much when I change direction. I feel a little pull, begin to notice where those small micro stabilizing muscles in the fingers activate. My index finger again does a lot of little flex and pull here. If I go up to the right, my thumb doesn't have the same push and pull, it more relies on my wrist on the other side. So where's your hand activating in this repetition of marking on paper, or sand, glass, or any other medium, ink, graphite? I'm starting to shift my attention from my fingers and that very subtle pressure to my arm. So I draw the mark more closely and lightly to my hand, my wrist. Shift that attention and draw it more with my arm, with my shoulder. Feel it through my elbow. Feel those subtle muscles in my fingers flex in my forearm as they guide the mark. And take a few moments of breath with the mark. Slow it down. Really feel that whole arm engage. Bring some attention to the posture. How are you sitting? I find myself a little sideways today, a little crooked. Maybe I can straighten up through this marking motion. Get my core into it a little, just to bring some attention there. If you found the mark, it's feeling good for your arm and your hand and the page today, and start to move on and explore that on a new canvas. It's good to make a little bit of a mess that we can just toss away to bring our attention and our awareness to what we're doing, and see if that can let us free ourselves to just follow that attention to the pencil, to the pen, to the paper, to the texture, and to the movement of our hand and our breath on the page. I'll pick somewhere to start. My arm loosen a little and just make that mark the way it feels right. And make another one near it. Continue to make the mark and see how it can happen in sequence. Each repetition is similar but different. Where does my instrument begin to fail? In this case, this pen is maybe not so good for pushing. It's a writing pen, it likes to pull. I can maybe engage my body a little bit more to make that work. Just keep following a sequence of the mark. Really bringing my visual attention to it here. You can see how that ink or graphite marker flows onto the paper. If you're close to your sketchbook or your paper, you can really capture that attention to the spread of the medium. Maybe I start to play with my speed a little bit, bring some attention to that. Can I really flow quickly with that mark to feel its comfort that I'm attached to? Not being concerned where it's going, or if sometimes it doesn't make the same connection to the page, just tracing that mark, using its repetition to let your mind come into attention of just making a mark. I often find it a bit of a challenge to not guide the drawing too much, to not put an imagination onto what it might be or could be. That's why I like these little sessions where I try to shift that away from the focus or intention and find something to really narrow in on. Kind of like a breath counting meditation. Familiar with that. It requires a little bit of consciousness and energy towards it. But the repetition of the breathing helps to remove some of the other noise from me. And same here with the mark. And maybe as I'm getting comfortable, taking a little time to do a little bit of that counting. For some reason, for years, I've always gone in sequences of 8. It doesn't really matter what the sequence is, but once it's been established, it again becomes that space of quietness, since it becomes a bit unconscious, to open up a little bit of the void for mindfulness. We can try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's important to have those spaces of pause or silence. That attention I was bringing to both talking and counting helped my sequential pattern of marking to drift a little bit more. I lost concern of what I was seeing visually. As you're more comfortable with your mark, you might even be able to start to close the eyes and just know that it's one mark after the other, the same mark. And just let the arm and the hand do it without concern for where they're landing or how they're looking for a little while. For me, it's just this flowing and looping around in sequence. Maybe with my eyes closed, I start to change the attention back to my hand, back to the speed, slow it down, tighten it up a little bit. Notice if I'm tense, or if my arm and body become a little bit anxious and not knowing where the mark is going to land. I get a little bit fast there. It feels that it might help with the accuracy. So maybe I can slow it down, let go of the accuracy, and just make the mark. If you're doing something that has a closed shape to it, I think this could bring a lot of discomfort. In that we never know if that circle is closing or that square is closing with our eyes closed. But that's okay. We're still making the motion of the mark, counting one after the other, whether that's in numbers or just the additive accumulation of each one of these. Inscriptions that's flowing through our hand, through our mind, this feedback loop between our fingers, wrist, elbow, forearm, shoulder, as we send a signal to make the mark. As the mark communicates back with the roughness of the paper, this page, this pen reflect that roughness very well. And bring attention to how your instrument is doing that. Here I can feel the fibers vibrating the metal tip of this pen. We can even begin to bring that at a very different scale of awareness into my mind. Maybe imagine light, thin metal vibrating over this coarse landscape of Bristol. And even though somewhere else with my hand I can touch the paper and it feels smooth, almost glassy. That I can experience two contexts at once, the smooth and the rough, through this act of drawing. And bring my attention there as I let go of what I'm drawing, what mark I'm making. My body has learned it now. The repetition has instilled it in my hand. My mind doesn't have to focus so much on what I'm making, where it is. You just move and mark, move and mark. And I'm aware in my mind that my path is still somewhat sequential. It doesn't have to be. It could be more sporadic, more random. Start to really free myself up and mark anywhere. Nice challenge with the eyes closed. Be to lift the pen, find a spot, and make a few quick, conscious, mindful marks. And then move to a new spot and make a few quick, conscious, mindful marks. And take a breath. And I think it is a bit of a challenge sometimes, just something quick and repetitive, to slow that down to the breath. And that's okay. Maybe we see and count in our mind how many marks happen per breath. And just try to breathe normally. I'm hitting about 6 with a bit of a gap in between. Looks like my pen has drifted. Many marks or shadows. And come back, bring my vision back to it. Let my eyes absorb what has happened on the page. And I think approach it without any reading or judgment, just seeing the collection of marks now. And as we enter the last few minutes, with some attention brought to the drawing, we can open up our mind and our body to flow and start to experiment with that mark. See what that practice for 15 minutes or so has brought to how we might play with the mark as we have greater awareness of it through our body. Just the mark, play with the other elements here already emerging on the page. Just, something you can really get your body into and start to feel it letting out some energy, some emotion. Maybe even more fluid here with my work. As my heart gets more engaged, as I intentionally activate more of the muscles in my hand simultaneously. Go fast for a while. And then let the body keep going fast while I bring my attention back to my breath. Deep in and a slow out. Into the nose if you can. Out to the mouth. So let those body marks release some tension and some energy through the breath, through the repetition. I find it's nice to have a bit of a creative outlet after one of these sessions of attention and flow, where we're bringing attention to the act of drawing as a way to free our mind and our hand, to train it and practice, to be aware of how our marks are made, and then to give myself some time to be free with it, to engage with it as a found drawing or artifact, and to discover new formal opportunities, new creative opportunities there as I draw in another medium, a painting marker, and find shapes, this kind of wishbone bifurcating and an inflecting Y shape, and see if I can find that branching structure throughout, give the drawing some grounding and foundation. And not every drawing we make in this mindful practice has to or even should inspire more work, but I find that usually afterwards I come to a session that I feel inspired and motivated to work on this and go a little further, just to release some more of that tension and be more engaged with this act of drawing as a creative outlet of expression. So I encourage always to keep working with it, give it a finishing touch, something you can feel completed with as you do a big in-breath and out-breath through the act of drawing. That's given me a little time to look through my drawing, see something emerge, and have a good time just relaxing into making marks on a page with attention to that interaction, my body, the instrument, the act of drawing. Hope everyone has a great week. My name is Robert. Spread the word, join if you can, and have a great day.